guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Brian, and a little while back I picked up this FM Trainmaster from MTH. It's a PS2 locomotive from their 2000 catalog, and I bought it in a non-functional condition. So let's see if we can open it up and see what's going on inside. Try to get this thing back on the rails again. So let's take a close look at this. Again, I've had this probably for about a little over a year now, something like that. And it's been on the list of things to do, so finally getting around to working on it. Like I said, I did buy this non-functional, so I knew right off the bat I was getting into a project, and that's fine. It's a good-looking engine. I don't have any Trainmasters. The price was right, so I figured let me pick it up and we'll make a project out of it. Since it is a project, obviously there's things wrong with it. The first thing is it doesn't run. We'll get that opened up, take a look at the board, and pretty sure that's smoked, so we'll have to replace that. Some other things when I got it, the rails here they had some surface rust on them, so I did polish them up. They came out pretty nice, but I'm thinking I want to try to put black rails on this. I did check out on MTH, they have them available, so I think we're going to do that. We're going to black these rails out and paint the front here safety white. I think that'll look pretty sharp with the dark rails on it. If I don't like it, I'll put these rails back on. I think that's going to be one of the things we do. Another thing is there is a crack on the shell on the top here. That was disclosed when I bought it. It's not a big deal. When I got this, along with doing the rail polishing, I did fix the crack on the top, so you can still see it a little bit. Let's take a little look there. That is up in here. I glued it on the inside and filled this a little bit, and then painted it just with a fine paint pen in the cracks there. Again, it's not perfect, but overall it's a pretty sharp looking engine, and I don't have any Trainmasters. I think this will be a fun project. Let's see what else. I think one of the lights in the front's missing. We'll get that fixed up. I did see those on the MTH parts catalog there, parts webpage rather. So they're available. And it does not have a smoke unit in it. That's been harvested out at some point. But we got a smoke unit for that, and the funnel, we'll take care of all that. We'll get that back in. I think overall it should be a pretty cool little project. Again, I don't have a Trainmaster. I've seen some videos. A lot of you guys out there have them. They sound pretty cool. They look pretty cool. Be a nice addition to the collection here. We'll open it up. We'll get started, check it out, and get this train back on the rails. Alright guys, so in this video I really just want to focus on getting this PS2 locomotive back up and running, get it on the tracks again. I'm not going to go into too much detail about all the mechanical stuff and breaking it down like I had done in some previous videos. This video again is really just to show you how to replace the PS2 board and get your locomotive back up and running. We'll open this up, we'll get into it, and we'll start taking a look at things. I am still going to break this down. I'm going to go through everything just like I did in the other videos, but I'm not going to show you that. If you really want to see that type of detail, you can check out some of the other videos where I go through all of that. But really in this video I just wanted to focus on the PS2 board replacement, and just to give you an idea how to get your old locomotive back up and running, get it back on the rails again. Even though I'm not going to go through the full detail of showing you the complete strip down, we are still going to do some basic checks, because we have a potentially blown PS2 5-volt board in there, and again it is a PS2 5-volt board, which we know there are some issues with those, but we still want to check basics and make sure copper wires weren't shorted to the frame, speaker wires aren't shorted to the frame, something that could have caused that to have blown, because we don't want to put the new board in and have the same problem. We still are going to go through some basic checks. Let's get into it. Alright, so here we go. I have had the shell off before, and again, I don't know if we can see this a little bit better here, but here's that crack that I had mentioned earlier. Again, that was disclosed in the description for the locomotive, and I knew that. I bought this as a project, and I'm okay with that. I did patch it up. I can show you that on the inside, and painted it a little bit on the outside, so you can still see it. It's not perfect, but overall it's a really cool looking locomotive. It would be nice to get this back up and running. Let's open it up. Okay. Alright, I've already taken the screws off, and we're going to check this out. First of all, I'll show you the area that I patched up. That's right in there. I used some CA glue on that, and again, just a little paint pen on the outside, just a real fine point to get in the cracks there. Fill it in as best I could. So, it's not too bad. It'll work. Okay, so the first thing I noticed when I had this open was this FETs here. These are the motor drive FETs, and these look like they have some Yeah, they look like they've been replaced with the big solder splooges off to the side. There's definitely some work going on inside of this at some point. Some other things I noticed here, close inspection, was we have a wire that's off on the rear coupler, round wire here, and it looks like the front ones has a broken wire as well. Now, I don't know if this is what caused the board to fry, if it was something else, but those two things right off the bat are going to have to get fixed. A while back when I did get this, I think one of the first things I did was just put it on the tracks, right? I knew it didn't work, at least that's how it was disclosed. I figured let me try it anyway. And of course, yeah, it did not come off. The DCS remote did not recognize it. I did a little bit of probing on it, and I put a note on here that the PS2 doesn't function. The AC/DC rectifier was tested okay, and that's usually the first place I look to make sure that it's getting the converted power. But so it's hard to see, but that's right here. So I did verify the AC voltage is coming in, and it's passing it out, converted or rectified rather to DC voltage to distribute to the board. So yeah, there's definitely something wrong with that. All right, so this is where the smoke unit was, and again, it looks like that was harvested out of this some point in its life. I do have a smoke unit for that. We're going to replace that. And in addition to the smoke unit itself, it does require a bracket that spans these two screws here. Did get that bracket, and I got the smoke unit. I have a funnel for that as well, so I think we should be set. Looks like the funnel's gonna go right around the molding in the shell here. We got that covered. Overall, everything else in the shell looks okay. I had mentioned that one of the headlights, I can't really get this angle on here, but one of the headlights right here is missing, and I was able to get that from MTH too. It looks like one of the marker lights is pushed in up front. We'll fix that up. We'll get that glued back in, but overall the shell looks pretty good. Sorry for that little crack right there, but again, not a big deal. It's a real sharp looking locomotive, I think, still. I can't really see down into the speaker area too well, or any of the wires to check anything else to see if anything was pinched or melted. But as we pull this apart, we're going to do this very carefully and exercise caution to try to reroute the wires and everything back, and put them back where they were rather. So, and as we go, we'll check these wires out and see if anything else is pinched that may need replacement. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do here. Right here we have the PS2 board, and the PS2 boards are no longer made. So what MTH has done now is they've replaced that with what's called a PS3/2 stacker, or a PS3 2 stacker. We're going to take this board out, and we're going to install that board. PS3 2 stacker is it's effectively a PS3 base board on it down here, and then the stacker part of it is the portion of the board that would plug into the otherwise white connector that we know of from the upgrade kits. On this board, it's actually a pin header. It's a 40-pin pin header soldered into the board. So the smaller 5-volt board on the top plugs in. We're looking at this upside down. That one will plug into that connector, and it converts all of the light functions for the for the older PS2 models that use the incandescents. This section of the board, the stacker part of it, allows you to just take that whole stacker set and just plug it right into this. So you don't have to rewire anything. You don't have to change your incandescents to LEDs, things like that. You want to make sure you get the one that has the connectors that matches the connectors with the one that you're replacing. So there are two different stacker boards on the MTH website. One of them's got the black connectors like this one here, and the other one's got the white connectors. It's really best, if you're going to do this, take your shell off, take a look at it, and see what you have before ordering. Okay, so let's take a look at the board. Put this out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to put down some ESD bubble wrap here, and this is what we got here. So this particular one is part number AE100000355V as in Victor. So this carries the same disclosure as an upgrade circuit board from MTH. Once you open this up, you void any warranty unless you are an authorized installer. I am not an authorized installer, so I take the responsibility that if anything happens to this, it's my fault and my loss. And it does state that on here, that these have all been tested prior to shipping. Once the seal is broken, warranty is void. Ensure that you do not pinch any wires in your installation. And that is definitely critical. That's something I may not have stressed upon in some of my other videos with the upgrades. I believe I did mention it, but you really want to be careful that, you know, when you go to put everything back together, you do not pinch any wires on these rails here where the shell comes down. This Trainmaster is a little bit different. The body, the shell actually goes over this lip here, but on something like a GP or an SD, it's going to have a flat spot here where the shell comes down onto it, and it is very easy to pinch a wire. And you can still pinch a wire here too as well. You know, you got to be careful when you put everything back together. But you know, that's the general disclaimer here. Let's open this up and check it out. Again, before I open this any further, I'm going to ground myself out on my outlet here. I do not have an ESD wrist strap, but I highly recommend if you do this, you know, if you can, wear a wrist strap to keep yourself grounded, because this board is electrostatic discharge ESD sensitive, meaning, you know, you can zap it with any kind of build-up static on yourself if you were to touch it. You know, I always try to be very careful not to touch the components with my hands. Ground myself out. Again, I don't have a strap. I should have a strap by now doing these things. And, you know, I'm just very cautious when I handle it. I try to keep it in a bubble wrap, you know, grab it by the relay, something like that where you're not touching the electrical traces, like on this one here. Look, this one's toasted, but, you know, this is something you don't want to do with a good working circuit board. You just don't want to do that with any kind of ESD that you may have build up on your body. It's going to discharge air, and it could potentially blow out your electronic components. With that, let's open it up. So if you've done any upgrades on a steam locomotive, MTH steam upgrade, you'll notice that it comes this way as a stacker, as it's called. It's got a little bit different bracket than the typical diesel upgrade bracket like we used in the last videos, but you know, overall you want to just double check this and make sure that these connectors here and the pins match with what you're replacing on your locomotive. So we're going to go do that now. So we'll slide this out of the way, bring the chassis back over, and do a quick check on this. These are the connectors we want to look at, and we want to compare them. It's a little hard to see. I think I'm going to have to take this out of the chassis. We want to compare them with the connectors right in here, all those connections, and make sure that everything matches up when we start taking this out, and then we'll do the comparison here. Actually, before we take that out, let's just look at something here. So the first thing that stands out is, you know, we're going to have to mount this board in this location, right? We'll have to get the mounting bracket out for this and figure out how we're going to mount that, most likely to this silver bracket that's already on the board, already on the chassis rather. So we're gonna have to do some mods to get that on there, I think. But we'll figure that out as we go here. We're gonna take the connectors off here and start pulling this apart really slowly, a little bit at a time, to try to figure out, you know, as we go, how we're gonna get that board mounted on here. Okay, so we're gonna start by taking off the fuel tank first. Looks like this one drops out from these screws here. Okay, so this screw right here has looks like it has a voltage regulator on there. So we're going to pop that out. Alright, let's get the tank out. Alright, on the regulator here we have a little insulating tab. That insulating tab and this little insulating piece of plastic, we'll put that back on here. Okay, so just a couple things here. You know, when you are updating this old PS2 board with a PS3 2 stacker, you're going to have to change out your speaker. This is a 16 ohm speaker, and the newer PS3 2 stackers require the use of a 4 ohm speaker. You know, if you order one of these boards, the PS3 2 stacker, you're going to have to also get the speaker as well to match. So don't forget that, because that is very important. All right, so as I took this out, one thing I noticed was we got a wire here that looks like it was pinched. Speaking of pinched wires, so far we've got at least 3 things that could have caused this board to blow. And again, maybe it had nothing to do with any of this, but we've got a pinch speaker wire, and we've got 2 coupler wires that looks like they're broken off. You know, we'll take care of this as well. You know, this is why we have to check all this stuff anyway. You don't want to just go in and replace the board. You want to really just do a check on this and make sure, you know, do due diligence and make sure that you don't have pinch wires like that. You know, wires that came off of couplers could have shorted to the chassis, as well as this. All of these things right here could have been the reason why the board went. And again, maybe they didn't have anything to do with it, but definitely something we got to take care of. You do not want to replace this board with a new board and have these problems here. We will take care of that. All right, put this off to the side. Now we have the speaker baffle in here, and I'm not going to try to get that out yet. Actually, we don't even have to take that out, I don't think, but let's keep going with this. We're going to have to take off the battery holder. We don't need that anymore. And we're going to have to get this old PS2 board off as well. Let's keep peeling back the layers of the onion here. I think next is going to be these screws to get this whole assembly out. And then we're going to gently unfold this from the wiring and disconnect here and take a look at these connectors, and then figure out how we're going to mount the new board in here. Alright, let's start with this bracket. I don't think it really matters which one we start with. Alright, so we're going to need to unscrew the bridge rectifier here, and that's really what's holding the board onto the bracket right now. So we'll take that off and pull the board off. Okay, so now that we got this bracket out with the screw, this has a screw that goes through into the side of the bracket to the back of the bridge rectifier, and it's threaded on the back side. We're going to need to remove this connector here, which is for the battery, I believe. Yep, that's for the battery. We're not going to use that anymore. And then we're going to pull this up. There we go. And then there's that dielectric grease that we all love so much. Once it gets somewhere, it goes everywhere. All right, we'll put them off to the side. All right, I'm going to wipe this down a little bit before this stuff goes everywhere and gets all over the wiring. Okay, let's bring our board back here. PS3 2 stacker. All right. Now let's carefully take these connectors off. All right, so let's take a look at these wires. We've got white and yellow for the motors. That's the DC. And then we've got the track power for AC, the black and red coming in. We've got the tachometer wires on this connector. And then we've got all the other lights and functions, couplers on these wires here. Oh, and the speaker right there. What we removed was a regulator, which is soldered into this existing PS2 5-volt board. We're not going to use that. And we can lay this one on the towel. Again, this board's blown, I'm not concerned, but this one we've got to be very careful of. So we're going to do a comparison here. Let's see. Let's do it this way. Try to get these out of here so you can see a little bit better. The old board here, we had the motor wires or harness was connected to this went to this connector here. On the new board, it's going to go to this connection right here. The pickup, the track voltage and tachometer went to this connector here on the old board. The new one is going to go right here. And the other two harnesses that are on here, one goes to this connector here, and the other one to this connector here. Now this connector with the 4 pins on there, that's where the smoke unit went. And again, it was removed out of this when I bought it, so the smoke unit I have does have the connection for that, so it's going to plug right into that. So as you can see here, everything's really designed to plug right back in. You know, you don't have to do any kind of rewiring or anything like that. You don't have to take your PS2 locomotive that has a blown board and upgrade it with a PS3 diesel upgrade kit and redo all the wiring. You don't have to do all of that. If you get the proper PS3 2 stacker, you can just unplug all of your wire harnesses and plug it right back into the new one. I think the biggest challenge here is just going to be getting that mounted into the chassis, right? Because it mounts in a little bit differently. We'll get it in there though. Okay, I think what I'm going to do before I go any further now is we're gonna put this guy onto the side and straighten up here a little bit. And what I want to do is just go through the chassis here. I want to fix the wire for the front coupler, wire for the back coupler, and what I'll do probably is we're going to change out the speaker and clean up this broken wire right here. I'll take care of that, and then once we get back, we'll figure out how we're going to mount the new board into the existing brackets. We'll mock that up and figure out what we're going to do with that, and let's see what else. I think that's probably about it. I am going to take the motors out too, I think, and just check them, make sure that they're greased up okay, and if there's anything else I see that needs to be tended to, I'll take care of that. But overall, I think we've identified the areas that look like they need attention. So all right, let's get to it. Okay, so just want to go over some of the things that I did off camera, some of the areas that we identified as issues. For the front coupler, we rehooked up the wiring for that, so that's all nice and soldered back on to the coupler. And I did put some hot glue on the wiring to the coupler just to help provide a little bit of strain relief too, so that helps prevent the wire from pulling off again. But I did make sure we have enough service loop up in here as well to make the full scale turn. It binds a little bit right here, I think, but this isn't going to see any kind of tight radius to where the trucks would be turned at full scale. And again, it's on there pretty good, so I'm not too concerned with it. I think that'll work out okay. So I also did the rear coupler as well. We got that all wired back up. So as you can see here, it's all wired back up to the coupler. And I did the same thing with the hot glue. I put a little bit on there for strain relief. And I double checked this coupler as well with a 9-volt battery. Just put it across the terminals here just to make sure that it actuates, and everything worked out well for that. And double checked up here to make sure there's enough service loop so that we can go full scale turns on it, no problem. There's no binding with that. Everything looks good there. So that's the two couplers, both of them are back in business. So one of the last things I want to do here to wrap this up before we get started putting the new board in is we're going to have to take care of this speaker. We're going to replace the speaker with the new one. This is a 16 ohm speaker. With the new PS3 2 stacker board, we need to use a 4 ohm speaker. So we're going to put that in, and we're going to clean up this pinched wire here. So I'm not sure yet if I'm going to cut it here, depending on the length that I need. So I'm going to do a dry fit on that and make sure if I do cut this and shorten a little bit that it's okay. If not, a little bit of heat shrink on there is okay. It's not cut, it's just pinched, so the insulator is pinched down and the conductor is exposed. So we can put some heat shrink over that and that'll be acceptable. Let me do a dry fit on that, see how that works out, and then we'll get into replacing the speaker. Okay, so we got the old speaker back in just to take a look at what may have happened here, and this is a pretty tight fit with regards to the wiring. I can understand how this got pinched, but again, it shows how critical it is to double check your wiring as you're putting these things together to make sure you don't have a pinch like that. And it looks like, I didn't really notice it when I took it apart, but it looks like it probably got pinched down in here. We're gonna try not to let that happen again. I think I'm okay with shortening this because I really don't want to just put heat shrink on here. I mean, you can, it's acceptable, but I am going to go ahead and shorten that. If you can shorten it, I would highly suggest doing that as opposed to patching it. It's kind of like putting a band-aid on it. It will hold, it'll be okay, but we need to replace the speaker anyway, so we're going to have to take these wires off, so we might as well just shorten that a little bit. And when we put it back together, we're going to be really mindful about how we route the wires coming out and make sure that they do not get pinched against. This will get connected up into the harness right here. We can definitely take a little bit out of that. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so now that we got the speaker out, we're going to want to take a measurement on that because there are different sizes in the 4 ohm speaker variety, and you want to make sure you got the right one to put back in. We'll take a quick measurement on this, and battery on my caliper is dying a little bit, but we are we're in the 50 millimeter range. I think two of the most common ones that they have listed on the website are the 50 millimeter diameter and the 45 millimeter diameter. Before taking this out of the chassis and getting to the point where we are now, I had taken a rough measurement with the caliper across here and came up with the 50 millimeters that I figured the speaker's most likely to 50 millimeters. Between that and the 45, I ordered the 50. And let's carefully take this gasket off of this one because we're going to want to reuse that. And then we got the clips here, which are going to hold it back into the to the assembly. And this gasket, it mates up with the bottom of the frame to help give it a nice seal when it's installed. And then there's a baffle that goes on top. It really helps create a nice cavity to get the sound, really good sound quality out of it. All right. Let's start taking these wires off and get the gasket off, and then we'll get the wires back on the new one. Okay, so we have the gasket off. I didn't want to move this too much. I want to just put the new speaker side by side and do a check here, make sure everything looks the same. So I did clean this area down too with some compressed air and make sure there's no metal shavings or anything here. We'll put that down right there, and as you can see, the speakers look to be pretty darn close to the same, if not identical, aside from the magnet, and this being a 4 ohm versus the 16 ohm. We're going to take that, we're going to put that on like that, and we're going to solder these wires back up. We're going to start here by just cutting this. We're going to cut it right at that pinch point. Actually, I'm going to cut these, make sure we try to cut about the same length. Alright, so we got the wire all set. Tips of it are tinned, and we're going to position this. Actually, we don't have to do that yet. Let's get this soldered on. There's a plus over here, a little hard to see, and there's a minus over here. So you want your yellow wire to go to the plus and white to go to the minus. So let's get those installed. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on there, and then we'll get ready to put this back in the frame. Alright, so we got the wires on. It looks pretty good. And it looks like it's, it's set up the same way that the old one was. So we should be okay getting that up, routed through the frame without any pinch wires. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to put the speaker back into the frame assembly here, the fuel tank. Drop that back in. So the speaker is just going to rest on these little ledges right in here. A little hard to see, but the speaker just drops down onto there. And then we have the clamps that'll go into these corners. I got a little bit of hot glue on there. Clamps will go down into the corners here. I want to do a dry fit and see how this fits back up into the frame in case we have to move these wires out here. So let's go ahead and screw that in. It looks like there was this piece of this almost looks like electrical tape and something else on top of it to help protect right here. So we'll probably do something like that again, or just reuse this because it looks like this will get pinched right on that gasket there, and then when it all gets pulled together, it'll hold it in place. And we're going to put that off to the side. I'm going to save that. And let's see what happens here and how this works out. So try to be careful not to pinch these wires again. New wires on there. Alright, so that's going to go in like that. Now it looks like this white wire right here, the hot glue that I put around that is up against the frame, and I think that's okay. It's just the glue. The conductors aren't there, but what we can do is we can rotate that a little bit, I think, and get that off to the side. I'm going to loosen that up a little bit more and try to adjust that. Now, just like with all of my builds that I usually do, it's build a little, test a little. You put some of it together, try it out, make sure it fits before you go too far. So that's what we're doing here. We're just making some slight adjustments on the position of the speaker, just to make sure that it will fit and I don't have to rewire anything, because I'm going to loosen it off just to... Actually, I don't even have to loosen it off. I think we could just pull that off, put a couple drops of hot glue on that, and put it back in place once we get this positioned where we want it. Alright, so let's try this back in the chassis again. See how it fits. Actually, you know, before I do that, just still loose. Yeah, this is loose enough to where we can position it if we have to. Or reposition it, that is, once we get it in there. Yeah, be careful this magnet doesn't suck these wires into the frame and pinch them. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Oh, now I know why that piece of tape was in there. And that's to prevent these the solder joints here on the speaker from contacting the frame. That's how they insulated it. What I probably should do is actually open this up a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to open this up with the Dremel a little bit because I'm not too thrilled with how that's sitting. I really don't want to put the that insulating tape back in and just solely rely on that. I'm going to pop this out. Let's see, can we move that up a little bit? I suppose we could, but I still don't like that. Yeah, it's probably okay, but I'm going to open this up. So we'll take the speaker out, get the Dremel out, and open this up just a little bit around here so that we have better clearance. So let's carefully take this out again. Speaker off the side, and then we're just going to open that up right here a little bit, take a little bit of metal off. So if you are doing this and you don't have a Dremel, or you don't want to cut that, the factory did do it this way with this tape. I'm not saying it's right, but I think you'd probably be okay with it. You'd probably be okay with it, but yeah, I don't have a problem opening this up. Again, I don't really like cutting these frames, but for something like this, we spend the money on these kits, these boards, and these trains. Really want to try to eliminate any chance of anything blowing again, so we're just going to open this up a little bit. But if you really had to and you were in a bind, I think you'd probably be okay doing it the same way that the factory did, with some electrical tape. It looks like it may be a layer, maybe a masking tape or something too, something it's a little bit thicker, but maybe a couple layers of electrical tape over top of that would probably be okay. But for this one, I am going to open this up. We'll get to that next. Okay guys, so I took the chassis and I opened this up a little bit more. Unfortunately, I actually opened it a little bit too much, and it'll be okay, it'll still work, but the only thing I noticed is that this was a pretty tight fit, so that the edge of the frame came right up to here, as close to these terminals as possible, and that was to help provide a nice cavity for the speaker, a nice speaker cavity there. It's a little open now, not too worried about it. It may sacrifice a little bit of sound out of it, but I think overall it'll still be fine. And I got a peace of mind that the speaker terminals are not going to short out on the frame, so I'm okay with that. But as you can see, this is the edge of the baffle, or the gasket rather, around the speaker, and the baffle will go over top like this, and got a little bit of a hole over here. Again, not too concerned about it, and it looks like on top of that the baffle does come down, almost touching the gasket all the way in here. Really hard to see, but again, I'm not going to worry about it. It's these terminals aren't going to touch the frame now. That's all I was really concerned with. So let's get this button back up. I might put a little bit of hot glue on these and just adjust them a little bit more and get the speaker set in there so so it fits with nice even clearance on both sides. And then we'll start putting this back together. Alright, so we got the speaker all glued up and ready to go. Let's get that in the chassis now. Okay, alright, so that's in, and you can see we have some good clearance now between the tabs on the speaker and the frame. So I did open this up again. It's probably a little too much. It came up to about here before, almost right up to these little solder joints here on the speaker. That's the gasket, and the baffle is going to go over top, and you know, it may not make contact all the way on there. And again, if there's even any kind of noticeable difference in the sound, I'll take that over, knowing that these tabs are isolated now, because that was just a little too close the way that it was from the factory. Alright, so let's start putting this back together the rest of the way now. Okay, so I have the baffle here. We got 2 screws ready to go, and this is just it's a piece of cardboard, some different layers of cardboard, looks like glued together with some cotton inside, and again, just to help dampen the sound and project it downwards to the opening in the fuel tank. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. There is a little opening here where the wires come out, so I just want to make sure that you get the wires coming through that little opening there. And that just helps it sit down flush on the chassis a little bit better. Okay. Just something I want to mention here. You may have noticed this regulator that I did put that back in. So we're not going to use that, but I had to use that basically as a spacer. This screw right here is a little bit longer because it was designed that way to go through this regulator and mount it in the chassis there. So therefore it's a little bit longer. I checked my stock. I don't have any in that thread and the length that I need, shorten length. I'm just going to put that back in. I clipped the leads off, so there's no chance of it ever getting hooked up. And on top of that, we're not going to have this wire harness from the old unit hooked back up. Not worried about that, but in case you're wondering, that's why that is back in there. It's just as acting as a spacer, because I don't have a screw short enough to put in there. Okay, so we've got some more parts here. These are all from MTH, directly from MTH. We've got smoke unit. We've got the bracket for the smoke unit, and then the screws, the 9 screws for it. And this is the headlight piece too that I was missing. So let's get these brackets out. We get the bracket out, screws out, and then we're gonna get the smoke unit installed. Alright, so before we put anything in, we need to make sure, figure out which direction the smoke unit needs to go. Does it need to sit up here like this, go this way, or does it need to sit here and go this way? My guess is it's going to go this way. Try to get everything together and configure it so that we can get that to sit properly. So let's put the shell next to it, and that's where the funnel is going to go. I've got this kind of end to end here with regard to the frame, so it looks like we're going to be somewhere almost right over this board, something like that. So now let's move the shell out of the way and kind of roughen this bracket. Yep, that all lines up like that. So the first thing we want to do is take the smoke unit and screw it to the bracket, and then we're going to screw the bracket into the frame. Alright, this smoke unit is new from MTH. I don't want to take it apart. I can see down in the hole, and it looks like the wick is brand new. It looks like it's bright white in there. So I'm not going to take this apart and do any kind of service on it unless we start getting a squeal. Then I'm going to have to open it up, hold the impeller, put a couple drops of oil on it. Let's just put it in as is and give it a shot. Alright, tuck all these wires in. I have to hook up that speaker wire too before I forget. Alright, now it looks like it's hard to see on camera, but it looks like I can see down there. Feels like it's hanging up on something, so we'll take a look at that. But alright, it lines up. Definitely lines up. And we'll figure out what it's hanging up on. Yeah, it's definitely hanging up on something. It's probably one of the connectors. Yeah, I think I can see it right there. It's one of the connectors is jammed up. Alright, well, we'll take this off. Yeah, that's the speaker wire. Alright, well, we'll take this off for now. That looks good. It lines up. It's where we need it to be. So let's keep going with this. Okay, so next what we're going to do now is prepare to mount the stacker board. Let's get this out. Again, grounding myself out. Not touching the circuit board. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the mounting bracket kit, or the mounting bracket rather, that clamps onto the bridge rectifier, and we're going to use one of the existing mounting holes right here. Let me pop this out. Actually, I can leave that in. That's fine. What we're going to do is mount this upside down. So let's put this on its side. We're going to mount that just like that, and that'll pretty much sit where the stock board was. The stock PS2 board was probably a little bit higher, but I think this is a pretty good option right here. We'll have enough clearance on the top, all the way around the smoke unit, and let's see, and the front, all the light connectors and everything up here, and on top of the speaker. I think we're going to do that. And let's do a dry fit with everything. We're not going to put any thermal grease on yet, because what I want to do is really make sure that this will fit like this. Mount it up. We'll get the wiring harnesses connected to, and then we'll go check it out on the track. Actually, before we do that, we will do some electrical checks before we apply power to this. But let's get started. We'll get that bracket mounted and start putting the wiring back in and do some checkouts. Get it on over to the track. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Just screwed down into the chassis, again using one of the existing holes. So now what we'll do is start plugging the wires into the stacker board, and then we'll get that dropped in place here and screwed in, and do some checkouts next. What I haven't done yet was really, go through these wires with a close eye and my glasses on too, so I can see, and just make sure that there's nothing's frayed or damage or anything like that before we plug everything in and power everything up. I mean, these look okay, and again, just a quick visual inspection. Anything stands out, you want to take care of it. We had the speaker wires off already, so we're pretty good with those. Smoking wires, everything looks good. All right, that looks good. Let's start by plugging in the speaker wires, and again, these are keyed. You can't mess them up, but it is best to check, make sure white goes to white and yellow goes to yellow, which they do. So we're good with that. Okay, next we're going to start plugging in the wire harnesses to the stacker board. So just something to note here. This connector right here, you do not connect anything to that. So again, make sure you do not connect anything to this connector. We're not going to use that at all. These other ones will get connected. And everything is, the connectors are certain sizes to fit. I'm sorry, in the harness there are certain sizes, the plugs to fit in the connectors of the board, so they'll only go in one way. Okay, so we'll start with the motor wires here. And then we got the pickup wires and the tack. So there, and let's see, we've got the smoke unit. It's going to go here. And then we got, looks like some of the lights and functions here. Okay, and then more of the lights, couplers probably. Okay, there we go. He's plugged in, seated okay, and we're going to drop that right down like that. Push these wires out of the way. Alrighty. Okay, let's get the screw in the bridge rectifier and see how this really sits. Since I turned this around, the threaded part's in the back. Alright. Now what I may have to do is spin it, which is going to sit it back further a little bit. That's okay, we'll do that. Let's just pop that out. Put that off to the side. And then we're going to spin this around. Okay, we'll just take that out, and we're gonna use the other hole. And what this is going to do is, this side of the heat sink is threaded, this side's not. So we want to go in with the head on this side so that it clamps it together on the bridge rectifier. This is really the only thing holding the stacker board in place. I want to make sure that we can get it in there good and tight, be able to snug up everything correctly. So again, put that off to the side like that, and let's get this in. All right, there we go. There's a quick fix, and that's just going to push the board back a little bit. There we go. It's good enough. Okay, so let's get the bridge rectifier screwed in now. Now, I'm going to have to screw this in this direction, unfortunately, because the back side of the heatsink is threaded. And we got to put the head in the opposite side, right? So it's a little tricky to get that in there, but we can bend this a little bit, and then we'll move the caps out of the way a little and spin things around till we can get in there. Not the most ideal thing to be doing, but and then we got the magnet to deal with, so let me try getting that in there by hand. Okay, all right, good. We don't have to bend it too much to get in there. So the reason I'm doing it this way, you know, ideally it'd probably be best to spin this bracket around, but it pushes the board too far that way, sorry, towards the back, and the motor wires here for the front motor are just a little too short, so they just fit as it sits now, and I don't want to have to lengthen those or anything like that. So we're just going to do it this way and check things out, tighten it up a good amount, and we will go back in there and put the thermal grease on, but overall that's pretty good. It's sitting up a little high too. I don't want to bend this back and forth too much, but once we're ready to really button things up, we'll get this board set down as flush as we can to the speaker here. But overall, I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's do some electrical checks on it and then get it over on the tracks. All right, so we're ready to do some electrical checks now. Before we do that, I think what I'm going to do is prime the smoke unit before I forget. Okay, so now we have the smoke unit primed. Let's roll this over, get the meter out, and do some continuity checks. So, got this set on 200 ohms right now. We're going to be checking for shorts, so that's good enough. We want to see a short here. My meters, I need a new meter. Probes. Just really get on there good. All right, 0.5, 0.4, and that's center rail to center rail, the two pickup rollers. Try the motor screws here. Don't really push on that, get through the paint. So again, that's good. We got a short there where it's supposed to be, and that's chassis. So now we'll take this, we'll leave that one on chassis, and we'll take this one and go to center rail. That's good. We don't see anything there. And then this is going to be the same. All right, let's just make sure. Okay, got a short and no short. That's good. All right, while we're down here, let's check the couplers, make sure they're not short at the chassis. Do chassis to chassis there, and then, all right, now I'm just going on the, now I put hot glue on here, so I got to get through that a little bit. I can only gather that I'm getting through and that there's no short, as there should not be. There should not be a short. So, because if I go on the outside of the magnetic wire, it's got a coating on it. Chances are that won't detect anything, won't pick anything up. I think overall we look good. Trying to think if there's anything else here. I think we're ready to give it a shot. We'll try it on the tracks. All right, let's get to it. All right, guys, so here we are on the layout. We got our test track set up. We got our clip leads connected up to the TIU, and we got our remote here. What we're going to do is go ahead and add this engine to the remote. We'll start with the menu button. Menu, scroll down to System, click Engine Setup, add engine, add MTH engine, and now it's looking.